What I'm curious with you is somebody in that case working with you, type 2 diabetic, what do you do diet and lifestyle wise to help them work back towards metabolic health?
So when you look at this, what you're really trying to do is restore insulin sensitivity. So how do we restore insulin sensitivity? And it's interesting because the same things that help you age powerfully are the same things that help you restore insulin sensitivity. No big surprise there. And, again, I would start with that first of let's audit what you're eating. And I like to do things methodically one by one where people can get wins so that they'll be more likely to stick. And so it always is that, I always want to know your starting point. And so the macro audit, the protein, then getting up the non-starchy vegetables, 5 or 10 servings or more, adding in, 2 fruits a day, and then really being judicious with the rest of those calories. Like for me, fat should come from clean animal sources, um, extra virgin olive oil, and then maybe a little bit of avocado or nuts. And then, beyond non-starchy vegetables and fruit, I don't do a whole lot of other carbs, but if you're doing it as close to nature as possible. The piece that's so important for insulin sensitivity, resistance training obviously is huge. It's like, to me, the fastest way I can start to restore insulin sensitivity is resistance training. But the other side is sleep. One poor night of sleep and you're more insulin resistant. And quite often when someone's metabolically unhealthy, they're also having issues with sleep where they may need to go and have a sleep study, get a CPAP, because if you're not getting good sleep, you will have problems with insulin resistance. So you've got to get the sleep in there as well. Plus you need that to recover from the resistance training. But these things all like they compound on each other. It's like both ways when you don't do much, the less you can do, the less you do, the less you can do. The more processed foods that you eat, the more processed foods that you want. And the reverse is true too. As you start to eat protein first, we know you've got the thermic effect of food. You're going to burn, like if all you did kept calories the same and replaced some of your carbs or fat with protein, that initially will cause weight loss. But the reality is, and that is because of that thermic effect of food, where it's 20 to 30% of the calories from protein are used in the metabolism of protein versus 5 to 10% of the carbs and less than 3% of fat. But the reality is when you eat protein, and especially I have people eat protein first for this very reason, it's more satiating and satisfying. So you're not as hungry. So you won't keep calories the same. The reality is you'll likely eat less. So not only do you have a better thermic effect from the food, now you're eating less. And I say eat protein first, non-starchy vegetables second, little bit of fruit. And let's see what fat you need in preparation for the vegetables. And then we'll see where you're at. So that's the first part, is really dialing in that piece of it, and then getting in that movement, becoming aware of it, moving more, adding in the intensity, adding in the resistance training, getting a little hit, making sure you're sleeping well. And the challenge with these things is they all work really well. And over the course, like the person I'm working with right now, who's got about 200 pounds to lose, my goal for him basically you're losing about 1% of your body weight a week. So it's slow going when you think of, oh, I have 200 pounds, but I just do 10 pounds by 10 pounds. And we start to look at what things shift. Like, what can we celebrate? We can celebrate you've been tracking your food. Now we can celebrate you're nailing your protein. Now we can celebrate you've got your hydration levels in. Like, just because I know that the habits will dictate the success. And that if you start to live like a healthy, lean person, you will repair and become one over time.
So when you're talking about the diet piece there, you mentioned non-starchy carbs and fruit. For somebody that is metabolically unhealthy or even beyond, how do you feel about cutting those way down, or even all the way down, going as extreme as the carnivore diet, again, in the realm of fixing metabolism and then as a longer term solution?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I really think diets are tools. And, just like there's all these wars over GLP-1, it's like the diet wars. I used to think as an exercise physiologist, like I was like, why are the yoga people and the weight trainers always in a fight? But it's way worse in the nutrition field. Like it is ridiculous. And you know what? The thing that we know about these diets is they all work. Like they all have a place. There's, a place where keto works great, where carnivore works great, where plant-based can work. Like they can all work. So like, why don't we look at what's the problem we're trying to solve and what would be the best thing for it. And carnivore can be super effective. To me, it's kind of like a protein sparing modified fast that can also just make your gut calm down. Like if someone's got a lot of gut issues and they need to lose weight, the carnivore diet can be a great place to start because it just calms everything down, right? And it also takes a lot of decisions out of the way and it's super satiating. I don't know, like as long as you're watching things like not going crazy on ribeyes, I don't know how you really can overeat on a carnivore diet. I mean, it'd be pretty tough. Um, so I see a great application for that. Um, and if someone's super insulin resistant, I think pulling like that's the sugar impact diet. I was like, get the fruit out. Like literally eat protein, eat healthy fats, eat a little bit of non-starchy vegetables. Now, I like to add in the non-starchy vegetables because again, what I really like to look at is fiber for that GLP-1, for gut microbiome, and so that you get to eat some stuff. The cool thing about non-starchy vegetables is it's going to add some bulk to your meals. Like we love doing cauliflower rice pilafs because it's just like get to eat a bunch of vegetables. It just adds some bulk to your meals and you get all the polyphenols and the fiber. But I do think there's an application for just going straight carnivore for a while. The one I struggle with is the going totally plant-based. That one's a little challenging for me to wrap my brain around. But, and every time I speak in a consumer setting, I get asked how to do vegan and get enough protein. And it's like, and I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about, oh, it's easy to do. I'm like, not if you're a female who has to really watch overall calories, because every plant-based protein is going to come with carb or fat. And I don't know how to do it without using protein powder isolates and some amino acids, which, is how I would pull it off. But, all these things can be used. And again, I think the bigger takeaway is that diets are tools, not religions. Choose wisely. Just because your manicurist lost weight or did whatever on this diet doesn't mean it's the right diet for you. I find that authors write the diet book that worked for them and then become like a, preacher about it. And it, you've got to figure out the right thing for you at the right time of your life with the goals that you have.
One of the big counter arguments when it comes to a lower fiber diet, carnivore-ish diet, high animal base, is the microbiome. And you quickly mentioned the microbiome piece there. How do you think about that as a whole and specific things you're doing to maintain that?
It's interesting. I was just with Mike Mutzel and he was like going through this whole thing of like rethinking fiber. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like saying the earth is flat and we thought it was round, it's hard for me to go, okay, like fiber doesn't make sense because, I think of things like butyric acid with resistant starch to help with fat burning. So, I am not a gut microbiome expert. I don't play one on TV. And so for me, I'm looking more at the polyphenols that we're getting from the plants, all the antioxidants we're getting. Now, I know we can get a lot of this when we're eating carnivore. And, I'm a big red meat eater, grass-fed, grass-finished, but here's the reality. I don't eat, what is it, snout to hoof or whatever?
Nose to tail.
Nose to tail. I don't eat that way. I'm not going to. So therefore, I'm not going to get some of those things that you need to eat that way in order to get. And again, I don't know. I've been recommending non-starchy vegetables with a rainbow of colors for the polyphenols, with the fiber, and berries for years and years and years, and only pulling it out when someone's really got gut issues we've got to recover from. I know that histamine and oxalates and all that are real, but I don't think they're a massive thing. I think it's the minority, not the majority. So I tend to let's start with building a foundational diet, and then let's look at if you've got specific issues, and then we can go, okay, we need to look at low histamine or oxalates, and even food intolerance, right? But I tend to go majors first. And I find that one of the challenges I see out in our world is I see people majoring in the minors when they haven't even majored in the majors. Like they're concerned about, the something in their exercise program or something in their, getting a red light therapy, and they haven't even figured out how to meditate yet, or they're worried about oxalates and they haven't even really dealt in their protein levels yet. So I think we need to go majors before the minors, before we start to get into a lot of those things. But I know there's some controversy around the fiber thing. Basically, the way I would approach it is I'm a fiber fan, but if you've got gut issues and they're aggravating you, pull them out for a while, go carnivore, soothe your gut, do a lot of bone broth, and then go back carefully and retry using cooked before raw, right? And things like applesauce.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
This idea that you cannot build muscle as you age is absolutely ridiculous and wrong. And I actually am stronger and more powerful at 61 than I was at 25. I am in better shape now than I was then.